Dumb Husky and his white cat Shizun. Chapter 257. Tianyan Pavilion. Ferry by the river. What? Everyone's expression changed. Only Mo Ran had his eyes closed, as calm as water. Everyone was confused. What's going on? What's is this old case in Xiongtan about? Why did he kill? Mu Yanli interjected. It's a long story, and because of the passage of time, many people who know the story intimately are no longer around. However, if you don't want people to know, you shouldn't do it in the first place. Tianyan Pavilion investigated several times and found some evidence. Amidst the chaos, Mu Yanli looked back calmly. Have you brought the witnesses found from Xiongtan? The attendant went out to take a look and answered, Yes, Pavilion Master, they're all waiting outside the hall. Then ask the first witness to come in. The first witness entered the hall. He was an old craftsman. His back was hunched and he was trembling. When he saw the hall full of cultivators, his first reaction was to kneel on the ground and kowtow repeatedly. He hurriedly said, Greetings to you all cultivators. Greetings. Mu Yanli's tone softened. Old mister, you must be tired from the long journey. You don't have to be nervous. I'll only ask you some questions and you can answer what you can. The old man only trembled and did not get up. The monks of Wuobei Temple walked over and gave him a seat. They helped him sit on it, but he was very scared. He only touched a small corner with his butt and tried his best to shrink himself to the smallest size possible. Mu Yanli said, The first questions are, where are you from and what is it that you do? The old man's teeth chattered. When he opened his mouth, he answered with a thick accent, I'm from Xiongtan. I make lanterns that I sell by the street. Everyone looked at him curiously, from his sparse white hair to his broken shoes. They could not tell what kind of past this lantern seller could reveal. Mu Yanli asked, Mister, how many years have you been selling lanterns? More than half of my life. At least 50 years. I can't remember exactly. It's long enough. What I want to ask you is not something older than 50 years, Mu Yanli said and pointed at Mo Ran. Mister, do you recognize this person? The old man looked up at Mo Ran. He saw that this person was tall, handsome, and had a divine aura. He did not dare to look at him and immediately turned his gaze away. After a long time, he hesitantly stole a glance at him. Then he mumbled, I don't know him. Mu Yanli said, It's not strange that you don't recognize him. Then let me ask you again. When you were selling lanterns beside the Jade Wine House, was there always a child who liked to stand beside your stall and watch you make lanterns? The old man's eyes were cloudy, but he was very clear about this matter. He sighed and nodded. Yes, there was a child who came to watch me almost every night. He liked the lanterns I made, but he was too poor to buy them. I even talked to him a little at that time. He didn't like to talk and was very timid. Mister, do you remember his name? Oh, I think he was called Mo Ran. Just now, everyone was listening attentively to the old man's words. Now, their gazes all fell on Mo Ran. The old man, who was immersed in his memories, continued to mutter, I don't remember clearly whether there was his name or not. I only know that he was from the Jade Wine. Xue Zhenyang interrupted with a sullen face, Ran Air was originally the son of my late brother and the madam of the establishment. Pavilion Master Mu, you need not ask this old man about that. The madam. The old man was startled and waved his hand. Oh, that's not it? Although the madam's son was also surnamed Mo, his name was Mo Nian. He was a famous little tyrant back then. The old man lowered his head and pointed at an old scar on his forehead. Back then, he even threw a brick at me. That child was very fierce, wild, and mischievous. Xue Zhenjiang's expression changed. Mo Nian. Madame Wang anxiously said, Mister, Did you remember incorrectly? After all, it's just a single word difference. Was the madam's child called Mo Ran or Mo Nian? It's Mo Nian. The old man thought for a moment and nodded. There's no mistake. How could I remember incorrectly? He was called Mo Nian. Xue Zhenjiang's body had been originally slightly leaning forward, but when he heard this, he stiffened for a moment and then collapsed in his seat, his expression blank. Mo Nian. Mu Yanli continued, do you know what that child who used to come to your stall do in the Jade Wine House? Ah, I don't know the details, but I vaguely know that he helped cook in the kitchen, said the old man. His reputation wasn't very good. It was said that he has dirty hands and was always stealing from customers. He did his best to think and then seemed to recall something. His expression changed. Ah, I remember now. That child was no good. As he grew up, he got worse and worse. It was said that he raped a maiden and that maiden couldn't take the humiliation and committed suicide. What? If swapping out a raccoon for the crown prince is considered shocking, then knowing that Mo Ran had sullied a maiden before was even more infuriating. Quite a few of the cultivators present who were parents to young girls immediately seethed with anger. Clenching their teeth, they said, I didn't expect that Grandmaster Mo was actually a beast in human skin. Too disgusting. Death sentence is too light for him. Mo Ran didn't say anything. He just calmly looked at this old man. In his previous life, when he had stirred up a storm of blood in the cultivation world, the Tianyan Pavilion had also tried to stop him. At that time, this old man had been brought over by Mu Yanli to testify against him. What had he done at that time? He had laughed heartily and didn't refute it. He even turned to look at Xue Zhenyang and Madame Wang. His smile was twisted as he mocked, how about it? Do you hate me? Dislike me? Are you going to be like my good Shizun and declare that I'm deficient by nature and beyond remedy? By that time, it was already exposed that Mo Ran was practicing the Zhenlong chess formation, but Xue Zhenyang had still chosen to stand beside him. Only then did Xue Zhenyang stand up in anger. He was so angry that he almost coughed up blood. His tiger-like eyes bulged as he shouted, "You're evil. Absolutely evil." Hearing this, Mo Ran laughed heartily. His laughter was even more unrestrained and carefree. He laughed so hard that the corners of his eyes got wet. He had raped a maiden? Xue Zhenyang believed that. He actually believed that. Ha 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 ha. Mo Ran's smile suddenly tightened. He simply gave up on this and made up his mind. His handsome face was as twisted as he said, "Yes, I did commit these heinous sins. I killed your nephew and that pitiful girl, so what? Uncle, you want to do justice for the heavens and kill me." Before he could finish, he felt a pain in his heart. Xue Zhenyang had a violent temperament. Before Mo Ran could finish his words, he had already attacked with a roar. His eyes were filled with hatred and tears. The tip of his fan pierced through Mo Ran's chest. Mo Ran was stunned for a moment. Then, the corners of his mouth curved into a faint smile. He lowered his head and looked at the blood that was gradually seeping out of his chest. He then sighed. "Uncle, I have called you uncle for so many years. But in the end, you still don't know me." "Shut up." Mo Ran smiled. His shoulders were slightly trembling. "Forget it. In the end, we don't have the same blood flowing in our bodies. So, this fake home, this Shisheng Peak, what else is there that I can't bear to part with?" Blood splattered all over his face. He watched as Xue Zhenyang collapsed in front of him. His brain was slightly numb. He didn't really want to kill him, but this uncle was so hot-headed and had rushed forward to kill him. He was the one who asked for it. Mo Ran was silent for a while. He raised his bloodshot eyes and looked at the shocked and sorrowful Madame Wang. He licked his lips, stepped over his uncle's body and walked toward his aunt. Xue Zhenyang was still breathing then. He gripped the hem of his clothes tightly and refused to let go. This middle-aged man seemed to be very angry, but it also seemed that his grief and heartache were greater than his anger. At that time, Moran's mind was in a frenzy. He didn't understand what his uncle's eyes meant. Why were there tears in his eyes? He didn't want to understand. Moran heard Xue Zhenyang say, don't hurt. She saw this. That's why she needed to die. Moran was very kind and calm. However, Xuemeng isn't here, so, since you've raised me for so many years, I'll spare his life. Madame Wang's struggle was nothing in Moran's eyes. Besides, she didn't have the strength to struggle. She could only cry. Like her husband, she could only angrily call him, bastard. But when the knife stabbed into her, blood flowed out. Her consciousness gradually faded. She looked at him, but in the end, she muttered, Ran, why did you? Moran's hand was actually trembling at that time. He was shaking, but in the end, he still pulled the knife out. He lowered his head and looked at his palm. His palm was wet. He held the scarlet dagger in his palm. It was slippery and smelled of iron. It was hot. But it would be cold soon. Just like his so-called home, his so-called family. From the beginning, he was apprehensive because he knew that in reality, whether it was Xuemeng, Xue Zhenyang, or Madame Wang, they were not his family at all. Their biological nephew had already died in his hands. Ridiculous. A loud shout interrupted Moran's reminiscing. Moran raised his head in a daze. He looked around the hall before finally landing his gaze at Xue Zhenyang. It was Xue Zhenyang who was speaking. I'm the one who raised this child. I know very well that he wouldn't do that to an innocent girl. Don't slander him. Moran was stunned. He suddenly felt that his heart was filled with bitterness. His eyelashes fluttered and he closed his eyes. It was different. 2 lifetimes, many things had changed. The old craftsman was so scared that he rolled down from his seat and kowtowed repeatedly on the ground. No, I'm not lying. Please don't be angry, Lord Cultivator. I really. He was just a pitiful craftsman. He had never been in this situation before. He had been reprimanded by the leader of a sect. He was so scared that his face turned ashen. In the end, he couldn't even complete a sentence. Xue Zhenyang shouted in a low voice like a ferocious beast ready to attack. Get out! Get out! The old man immediately got up and wanted to get out. However, the people from the Tianyan pavilion stopped him. He couldn't move and fell to the ground. His whole body was shaking like a sieve. He muttered, "Oh heavens, what's going on?" Mu Yanli said, "Sect leader Xue, don't be angry. Old mister, don't be afraid. The Tianyan pavilion is here to address all grievances. We won't frame or hurt the innocent." She paused and helped the old man up. "Mister, please finish speaking. I have nothing more to say." The old man was really scared. He didn't want to say anything more. "Please, elder cultivators, master monks, please let me go. I really have nothing more to say. My memory is not good. My memory is not good." In this stalemate, Moran, who had been silent all this time, suddenly looked at Xue Zhenyang and kowtowed. The meaning of this action was self-evident. Xue Zhenyang and Xuemeng couldn't say a single word, not even a single word. Madame Wang murmured in disbelief. "Ran air." Moran said, "Back in Mount Xiao, I wanted to confess to uncle the whole truth, but there was no time. I didn't expect that I would have to do it in this situation." Moran's eyes were very calm. Because it was too calm, it even seemed a little dead. "Pavilion Master Mu, since you came here today, I'm sure you've gathered all the evidence and witnesses. There's no need for them. Yes, I'm not the second young master of the Shi Sheng Peak." He paused and sighed. His voice was as light as a feather, but it caused thousands of waves. I'm the son of Nangong Yan, the city lord of the ninth city of the Rufeng sect. What? Everyone was horrified. Don't you want to hear the whole story? Mo Ran closed his eyes and said. I was indeed the one who set fire at Jade Wine House. Dozens of lives were lost because of me. Madame Wang said with tears in her eyes, Ran Air, how could you, how could you? However, back in Xiongtan, that young girl who was humiliated to death. He paused for a moment. In his previous life, no one was willing to hear the truth from him. They just all angrily accused him and cursed him, so he didn't want to explain anymore. After all, in the eyes of others, he was just a heinous devil. Why does it matter if he got accused of another crime? However, in this life, he wanted people to know the truth. I never violated her. I didn't cause her death. Silence reigned in the loyalty hall. Everyone was staring at Mo Ran, waiting for him to talk more about this old case that no one knew about. Mu Yanli raised her beautiful eyebrows. Oh? Is there more to this case then? Yes. Do speak, Mu Yanli said. I'm all ears. Mo Ran shook his head. Before we talk about the case of that girl, there's an important person that I need to talk about first. Who is it? A songstress. As Mo Ran spoke, he looked at the distant sky through the open window. At that time, there were two young lute singers in Xiongtan. One of them was called Sun Fengruo, and the other one was called Duan Yuhan. Many people in the hall were shocked when they heard him mention these two names. Sun Fengruo. Duan Yuhan. Ah! Don't tell me they are the two top performers of the music house? It must be them. I remember that they were both singers from Xiongtan. They were famously called the fairies by the riverside. Yes. Sun Fengruo sang in spring. She danced in the cold and the flowers filled the sky. Someone stroked his beard and sighed. At that time, I was only in my 30s. The fame of these two were widely recognized, but it's hard to catch their performances. I heard that every time they were to perform, the music hall would become crowded early on. They were very popular. Someone else said, they were the music fairies. I think they used to be rivals. Mo Ran said, yes, there were indeed rivals. Sun Fengruo was 2 years younger than Duan Yuhan. She entered the music hall 2 years later. At that time, she was proud and arrogant. She was not convinced that Duan Yuhan should be as famous as her. Therefore, she sent an invitation to Duan Yuhan to play 3 songs at the Jade Wine House. They were supposed to determine then who was better. Who won in the end? It was a tie. Mo Ran said, but from then on, the two of them started to appreciate each other. Although Sun Fengruo and Duan Yuhan were not performers in the same music house, they often interacted with each other and called each other sisters. Someone said impatiently, why are you talking so much nonsense? Why are you talking about these women for no reason? Mo Ran looked at him and said, Duan Yuhan is my mother. End chapter. Dumb Husky and his white cat Shizun. Chapter 258. Tianyan Pavilion. Gentle yet unyielding. What? Back then, when Duan Yuhan became a well-known pipa player and singer from the Wuling County. She sang countless songs that Peerless Singing Fairy was actually his mother. At that time, my mother met Nangong Yan by chance, who was the 9th city's lord of the Rufeng sect. He knew some poetry and songs, had a sweet mouth and was also handsome. Mo Ran paused. My mother made a mistake and fell in love with this person. Xuemeng couldn't help but shake his head and murmur, how could that be? With such a beauty throwing herself into his arms, how could Nangong Yan resist? Mo Ran said, however, he has a status and reputation. He didn't dare to tell my mother who he really was. He lied to my mother and told her that he was a businessman from Linyi who was visiting the area for a while. If they were in love, they would have stayed together day and night. Didn't your mother notice? Mo Ran sneered. If she had noticed, things would not have been as it turned up later. Nangongyan was very good at making up lies. Besides, he only lived in Xiongtan for a short period of time, so my mother didn't have time to find out his real background. Later on, a letter came from Linyi. After Nangongyan received this mysterious letter, he left Xiongtan in a hurry. Didn't your mother ask where he was going? He left in the middle of the night without saying goodbye to my mother. They were lovers for several months, but in the end, Nangongyan only left a stack of silver leaves and a piece of paper with the words "Forget about me" written on it. A female cultivator sighed and said, The most difficult thing for these performing ladies and courtesans to find is a sincere person. They're really pitiful." After sighing, she couldn't help but ask curiously, "What happened later? Was your mother unwilling to be abandoned by her lover, so she asked someone to find him?" Mo Ran shook his head. "My mother was gentle and kind, but she was a bit timid. Even if she was abandoned, she would only swallow her bitterness and wouldn't look for trouble. But not long after, she found out that she was pregnant. When Madame Wang heard this, she couldn't help but let out an ah. Her eyes were full of sadness. She looked at Mo Ran, not knowing what to say. The music hall was willing to keep her on the condition that she couldn't give birth to the child. Women who have given birth no longer look beautiful when they dance. It was bad for their business. Mo Ran's eyes closed. My mother refused to give me up, so the madam in charge asked her to pay a large amount to buy her freedom. Therefore, she gave all her savings, all her accessories and even the embroidered shoes on her feet to the music hall. She earned her freedom and planned to go to Linyi to look for my father. Madame Wang said softly, "She was a penniless woman, how did she manage to get from Xiongtan to Linyi?" Mo Ran said, "She received help from someone." Sunfen Ruo. Mo Ran continued, "Her sister Sunfen heard that she left the music hall and went after her before she left for Xiongtan. She gave money to my mother and told her that if she couldn't find my father, she may come to Jade Wine House and ask for her. They could live as sisters together." Master Xianjing sighed. She had such a spirit of loyalty. I underestimated these weak women. Zhang Shi asked, "Then what happened? Did your mother find Nangongyan?" Mo Ran was silent for a moment, then he sneered. "She found him. Although the identity that Nangongyan gave my mother were all fake, my mother still found him." Someone said in surprise, "Huh? Is there such a heaven-defying ability?" "There's no heaven-defying ability, it's just due to a coincidence." Everyone looked at each other with suspicion. How can there be such a coincidence? The city lords of the Rufeng sect rarely show themselves in public. They really don't show themselves. Mo Ran's face was gloomy. However, the Rufeng sect will still hold banquets for weddings and children's one-month celebration and receive congratulations on the city gate tower. Isn't that so? Everyone was stunned. Nangongyan received a letter. Was it to urge him to go back and get married? Someone else recalled. "Ah, I remember. Nangongyan's first wife was the daughter of a rich family. Could it be that he was forced to abandon the girl he was in love with and go back to marry that rich family's daughter?" Mo Ran's expression was extremely indifferent. He wasn't forced. He didn't go back and get married. The mysterious letter he received was actually good news. It was from the sect leader of the Rufeng sect telling him to go back as his wife was about to give birth. Even Xue Zhenyang, who had been silent, changed his expression. He said, "So, when Nangongyan went to Xiongtan, he was already a married man?" "Yes." Mo Ran lowered his eyes. It was really difficult for him. Now that he was talking about this matter, his face didn't have too much of a pained expression. He calmly said, "Nangongyan's wife was pregnant and had a weak constitution. She was prone to miscarry, and so he left Linyi to fool somewhere else around. He met my mother and liked her. He lied that he was not married to win my mother's favor. Someone was so angry that he stamped his feet. He's worse than a beast. His wife was pregnant, but he ran out to play. He even had a child out of it. Alas! This Duan Yuhan is really unlucky. Would Nangongyan acknowledge her? The answer was self-evident. Everyone was excited and indignant. They looked at Mo Ran with a bit more pity. However, Mo Ran didn't care about how others looked at him. He just continued to narrate about his mother's story. He had kept this secret for 2 lifetimes. This was the first time he spoke about it openly and sincerely. In addition to the pain, he also felt a bit relieved. Mo Ran said, at that time, there was a big banquet in Linyi to celebrate the birth of a young master of the sect. When my mother came to the city tower, he saw Nangongyan holding his wife and child in the platform with auspicious ribbons. He was accepting congratulations from the people below and giving out auspicious fruitcakes. After that, my mother didn't look for him again. At that time, she had used up all her money. She couldn't even afford to pay for the passage back to Xiangtan. After half a year, she gave birth to me in an abandoned woodshed in Linyi. Zhang Shi asked, then did you go back to Xiangtan, to the Jade Wine House? Mo Ran shook his head. When I was born, my body was very weak. I fell ill in less than a month. I wasn't fit to travel at all. In order to treat me, she begged all the healers in the city, but no one was willing to help her. She had no choice but to carry me and go to the Rufeng sect to look for Nangongyan. That year, the weak mother appeared in front of her lover with a newborn baby who was as small as a kitten. That man didn't feel happy to see them. He only felt endless shock, fear, and even anger. He had a pretty wife and child. His wife was the daughter of a famous and prominent family. She gave birth to a healthy son. The whole family was harmonious and happy. In his eyes, Duan Yuhan was a piece of rat shit who wanted to ruin his good reputation and ruin his family. She had bad intentions. Why should he recognize them? Afraid that she would make a big deal out of this, Nangongyan gave her a bit of money to take the child and get out of the Rufeng sect. Duan Yuhan held on to her last hope and said with tears in her eyes, the child hasn't been named yet. Can you? He only glared at her with his face as hard as iron. Get out. Hurry up and get out. This is not my child. Don't be so shameless. Get out. She was roughly pushed out of the door. She didn't have time to be sad. The baby in her arms was crying so weakly. His hands and feet were cold. He was curled up in her arms like a dying cat. When she called onto him, he opened his dark eyes and looked at her blankly. He wasn't naughty at all. He was very obedient and quiet. She held back her tears and carried him to a healing pavilion. The healers in the healing pavilion shouted at her, how many times have I told you? We are not the Hall of Relief. How can we treat your child for free? If you don't have money. She hurriedly took out the bit of money that Nangongyan had given her. She was in a hurry for fear that others would frighten the baby in her arms. Her eyes flashed with distress. She kept bowing her head and said, please, please. I beg you, please do a good deed and save my child. You see, he is still so young. The healers weren't completely without kindness. It was just that they were annoyed by this woman. The medicinal herbs used to treat children were not cheap, so they refused her so rudely. Since this woman was willing to pay enough money, their attitude became better. They treated the baby with medicinal herbs and acupuncture. If the illness was too serious, he had to stay in the healing pavilion. Mo Ran illness came and went, but after a few months, he finally recovered. At this time, Duan Yuhan didn't have much money left. She thanked the healers and left with the baby. Seeing that winter was coming, she was afraid that her baby would get sick from cold again, so she went to get a small coat and a small quilt. After doing this, she totally had no more money left. She couldn't go back to Xiongtan. However, as Duan Yuhan sat in the abandoned woodshed and looked at the little boy who was chuckling at her with his finger in his mouth, she felt very happy and peaceful. She had always been a person who was content with what she had. "What should I call you?" The baby babbled but didn't know how to speak. Duan Yuhan made a fire and hugged her child by the fire pit to keep him warm as she teased him. When the child laughed, she laughed as well. The fire flickered and burned. The shed was remote and shabby, but because of this fire, she felt extremely warm. She rubbed his little face, making him kick his little feet and laugh out loud. She thought for a while and said, "How about I call you Ran Air?" Mo Ran sucked his finger and looked at her with his dark eyes. Duan Yuhan's face seemed to be sad for a moment. "I don't know what your surname should be. You can't be Nangong, but you can't take An Yang's surname. An Yang's surname was given by the madam of the music hall. It's bit strange that you'll be named after me. I'll just call you Ran Air, all right." Mo Ran laughed and smacked his fingers. He didn't nod or shake his head. "Ran Air, when spring comes, we'll go back to Xiongtan." Duan Yuhan touched his soft hair. "An Yang can play the lute and dance. There's a Miss Sun there. She's An Yang's good sister. She would like you very much. You have to be good and learn to call her Yuniang as soon as possible." "Oh, forget it. She has a bad temper. You should learn to call her Jaja. When you see her, you have to say Sunjaja, that's better. Only then will you have candy to eat. Do you understand?" She held his soft and tender fingers and said gently, "Don't worry. Ran Air, wait a little longer. Winter will be over soon. When spring comes, we'll go home." However, this winter was still too long. That year was a disastrous year. The lower cultivation world was overrun with malevolent spirit. Linyi was heavily fortified and ordinary people were forbidden to enter and leave the city. Therefore, Duan Yuhan was stuck. She went to work in a shop to earn some money to support her family. However, there was no such thing as a complete secret in the world. Someone revealed her history to Nangong Yan's wife. In short, not long after, the steamed bun shop that Duan Yuhan was working with, kicked her out for no reason. From then on, Duan Yuhan was shunned by everyone. Unable to find a job in Linyi, she could only resort to begging for her young son. There were a few times when she would sing softly on the streets while Nangong Yan would pass by, riding a horse in bright clothes. Behind him was a vast entourage. As he rode past in front of her, he felt guilty and wanted to hide from her. Actually, there was no need for him to do this. Although Duan Yuhan was pitiful, she had her own pride. She only sang some songs from Xiongtan and wouldn't even look at this man. She definitely wouldn't cry to her former lover on the streets and blame him for being fickle and untrustworthy. He didn't understand how this songstress could remain proud. Look at her tear-stained face. Although her clothes are ragged, she has a kind appearance. Why do you look at me like that? Someone passed by her and casually threw her a copper coin. She was like the beautiful Lady Yu Xian. She bowed and said softly, "Thank you, Master, for your kindness." The days passed like this. The lower cultivation world was razed and burned to the ground while Linyi remained a bystander as they watched from their high walls. The situation lasted for 5 years. Mo Ran turned 5 years old. One day, Nangong Yan quarreled with his wife. He was so annoyed, so he wandered around the West Market. The weather was good that day. With his hands behind his back, he looked at the jewelry shops and pastry shops with disinterest. Under the big banyan tree, there were old men playing chess. Linyi had always been a blessed land. So, what if many people died in the lower cultivation world? They had been singing and dancing here for hundreds of years. Nangong Yan walked over to watch the old men play chess. He was in regular clothes, so no one could recognize him. He happily gave them pointers. In the end, those old men were so annoyed that they chased him away. Nangongyan was not happy about this. He walked a few steps forward and stood under a big tree. He looked at the golden embroidered birdcage hanging on the branches. The birds inside the cage were chirping crisply. Perhaps the sun was too good, making people feel comfortable. Nangongyan stood under the tree and thought. Suddenly, he thought of that gentle girl in Xiongtan 5 years ago. He tilted his head and teased the bird, saying, "Hey, do you know how to sing Xiang Chuer?" Of course, the bird didn't know how to sing. It just kept chirping. Nangongyan sighed as he hummed the tune that Duan Yihan had sung countless times by his ears many years ago. Suddenly, he heard a clear voice behind him. Someone was singing softly, "The wild clouds are low, the north wind is cold, the sky is full of ice and snow, the well bars are sealed." The voice was like jade, tinkling. He felt like a lifetime had passed. He suddenly turned around. Because he had been deliberately avoiding her, he hadn't seen her for a long time. At this moment, across the bustling downtown, he suddenly saw that slender and gentle woman again. Just like in the dreams that he didn't dare to tell his wife for so many years. He met her again. Duan Yuhan brought along a frail child as the mother and son stood by the side of the street. She lowered her eyes as she sang a little song that she hoped would gain mercy of benevolent individuals so they could have some money for their meal. In the past, people struggled to catch her performance no matter how much money they have. She sang softly, "This road is in front of the mountain, behind the mountain, there are millions of pedestrians." Countless people came and went in front of her, but no one stopped for her. Although the song was nice, it wasn't that striking and she was singing alone, so no one was willing to pay for this performance. It's easy to see a lover, but difficult to see a lover. Looking into the distance, the smoke and water of the river pass are cold. Suddenly, a pair of gold-threaded shoes inlaid with emerald jade appeared in front of her eyes. She heard a man humming the next line of the song in a low voice. "Countless flying books have yet to arrive, the well has accumulated tears for you to see." Duan Yuhan was stunned for a moment. Then, she slowly raised her eyes. She saw him again. He was still the same as he was 5 years ago, dignified and extremely good-looking. He didn't age at all. Time left no trace on his face. Duan Yuhan saw her own reflection in his eyes. 5 years ago, she was a delicate young girl. Now, she had a face full of hardships. She was no longer beautiful, with some people even shunned her now. But the way Nangongyan looked at her was somewhat affectionate. After many years of marriage, his wife has heard of his past dalliances. Although she didn't dare to say it, she was still very unhappy. She would often throw tantrums and put on airs. Their son was also very naughty. Today, he stood in front of Duan Yuhan. Seeing her like this, his heart felt a bit of guilt and pity. Duan Yuhan stopped singing. Her eyelids drooped. "Mother." Mo Ran was puzzled and turned to look at her. Duan Yuhan said, "Mother is tired today. Let's go home." Mo Ran nodded obediently and smiled, "Then let's go back and rest. I'll think of something for dinner." Mother and son held hands and prepared to leave. Nangongyan called out to her, "You." His gaze fell on Mo Ran. This child was thin and small. His clothes were tattered, but he seemed smart. His face was also very beautiful. Nangongyan suddenly realized that this was his own child. He was his flesh and blood. He reached out and patted Mo Ran's head. Mo Ran didn't know who he was. He narrowed his eyes but let the man ruffle his black hair. "Oh." Nangongyan remembered that year when Duan Yuhan came to his residence with a kitten-like baby and begged him to save him. At that time, she said, "He doesn't have a name yet." "What's your name?" Nangongyan asked. "Ran Air." "What's your surname?" "I don't have a surname." Nangongyan looked at Duan Yuhan with a sour expression. He didn't know why, but he said, "Why don't you?" Before he could finish, he suddenly saw a group of Rufeng sect disciples walking past the corner of the street. Nangong Yan's trance was interrupted. He quivered and seemed to come back to reality. He met Duan Yuhan's eyes again. The pair of eyes that used to look at him with a smile were very dull now. They no longer have the dreamy gaze of a young girl. Even when he wanted to recognize them just now, they were cold. She had already seen through this man. Nangong Yan looked a little embarrassed because of this and also a little bashful. In order to hide his emotions, he coughed lightly and generously stuffed all the gold, silver, and valuables in a pouch and gave it to Mo Ran's hands. He patted Mo Ran's head again. "Your mother sang very well. These gold, silver, and treasures should suit her." A slender hand took the money pouch from Mo Ran's hand. Duan Yuhan only took out a copper coin from the bag and put it in the broken bowl in Mo Ran's hands. Then, she handed all the valuables and money back to Nangong Yan. She didn't say much. She just gently and calmly bowed to him, just like any passerby who gave her money. She politely said to him, "Thank you for your kindness, master." Then, she turned around and left. She was one of Xiongtan's music fairies. She used to be the moon surrounded by stars, singing and dancing. When thousands of people emptied the streets for her, she was never proud. But now, her beautiful clothes had faded and her beauty had withered. She could only beg on the roadside, but she would not feel inferior. From that day, Mo Ran became suspicious because of Duan Yuhan's subtle change in attitude. After much insinuations and questioning, he found out about the past. "Mother told you all this because I don't want to lie to you. But Ran you have to remember, don't be angry," Duan Yuhan said, "and don't ask for anything from him." As she said this, she poked Mo Ran's little head. When the disaster in the cultivation world calms down and Linyi allows ordinary people to come and go, we'll go back to Xiongtan. Mo Ran was quiet for a long time. Then, he nodded, "I won't ask for anything from him. Mother and I will go back to Xiongtan." Duan Yuhan smiled and said, "I don't know if Sun Mei would still recognize me. I don't look good anymore." Mo Ran was very anxious as he said, "Mother, you look good." "Mother, you look the best." Duan Yuhan smiled even more brightly. With that smile, it seems as if she really did recover the charm of the past. She teased him, "You have such a sweet mouth. In the future, whoever marries you, you have to treat them well." Mo Ran was a little embarrassed. He pursed his lips, but after a while, he still revealed his sharp baby teeth. "When I grow up, I want to find a wife who's like a goddess. Then we can stay together by mother's side." "Aya, you're dreaming. Who's going to marry you?" The mother and son laughed and joked. The bonfire in the woodshed crackled. It was very warm. It was as if every day in the future would continue to pass peacefully like this. Fire and night gave the poor an illusory comfort. Therefore, at that time, none of them expected that in fact, Duan Yuhan's days were numbered. "It was in the autumn when I was 5 years old," Mo Ran said, "right after the Mid-Autumn Festival. Because Rufeng sect had been closing its borders for a long time, Linyi's food supply became very limited. So, they adjusted the price of the goods. In the end, it was just to make the poor control their consumptions and not compete for food supply with the rich." Xue Zhenyang had all sorts of feelings when he heard this. His heart was in a mess. But when Mo Ran got to this point, he felt dazed and couldn't help but add, "Yes, I remember that when the price of the food items were inflated, the starving people in Linyi rebelled. Only then did the Rufeng sect finally lowered the prices. It lasted for about a year." Zhang Shi said, "I remembered it was half a year." Mo Ran closed his eyes and said, "It wasn't that long. It was 1 month and 5 days. It only lasted for a short 35 days. End chapter.